This video is sponsored by MyHeritage. This is Greenland, the world's largest island, sitting approximately 5,000 kilometers from the United States and 1,200 kilometers from Iceland, its closest European neighbor. Oh, and Denmark, the country it's technically part of, that's way over there, roughly 2,900 kilometers away. Convenient, right? And then there's this guy, Trump. First, he casually floated the idea of buying Greenland, like it was some sort of beachfront property. And when that didn't land, he threw out whispers about military force. Quite a bit of escalation. But the 57,000 people that call Greenland their home, they might have got other plans, like saying goodbye to Denmark and steering clear of the US altogether. But is independence really on the table? Could Greenland really one day join the EU as its own nation? Before we get carried away with hypotheticals, let's hit the rewind button and take a look at how Greenland got here in the first place. Greenland had been part of the Kingdom of Denmark-Norway since the early 1800s. After the Union dissolved, Denmark, like any other good colonial power, held on to Greenland as a strategic asset. They wanted the potential resources, even if they weren't sure what those were yet, and enjoyed the sheer prestige of ruling a massive icy island. During World War II, when Nazi Germany occupied Denmark in 1940, Greenland was effectively cut off from Danish governance. Enter the United States, who signed an agreement to protect Greenland and build military bases, including the massive Pitufik Air Base, which remains operational to this day. After the war in 1946, the US President Harry Truman made an audacious offer to buy Greenland from Denmark for $100 million in gold, which is around $1.4 billion in today's money. Denmark, however, politely declined the offer. In 1953, things got a little more official. Denmark changed Greenland's status from a colony to an integral part of the kingdom with a constitutional amendment. Greenlanders were now Danish citizens, and the island was now part of Denmark under Danish law. Fast forward to 1973, and Denmark joined the European Economic Community, in short EEC, the EU's predecessor, dragging Greenland along despite 70% of Greenlanders voting against it in a 1972 referendum. The main grievance? Fishing. Greenland's economy relied heavily on its waters, and EEC membership meant giving up control over this vital resource, a deal Greenlanders were not happy about. The tipping point came in 1979, when Denmark granted Greenland home rule, giving the island a large degree of political autonomy. This newfound power meant Greenland could finally make decisions about its relationship with the EEC. Eurosceptic voices, led by the Siumut party, wasted no time in pushing for a referendum to leave. And in 1982, Greenlanders headed to the polls, and 53% voted to leave, meaning that 3 years later, Greenland officially became the first territory to leave the EEC. Things stayed relatively calm until 2019, when Donald Trump reignited US interest in Greenland. First, he claimed the island should be up for sale again, much like Truman's offer in 1946. When that didn't work during his first term, Trump raised eyebrows again in his second term by suggesting military force to take the island if necessary. Greenland, unsurprisingly, wasn't amused. In fact, they aren't particularly thrilled about Danish control either, and calls for independence are ringing louder than ever. Is this possible, though? Now, before we dive into the details, have you ever wondered about your family's past? That's where today's sponsor, MyHeritage, comes into play. A true game changer in discovering your roots. When I first tried it, all I did was enter basic information about my parents and grandparents. And boom, my family tree started unfolding before my eyes. I uncovered my great-grandparents and traced generations I never knew existed. All easily done with MyHeritage's intuitive platform and its 20 billion historical records. I also uncovered some fascinating family connections. For instance, I found ancestors with roots in Turkey and Indonesia. Turns out the Dutch colonial history in Indonesia wasn't just something I learned in school. It's part of my very own story. And here's the best part. I added my first cousin, twice removed, to my family tree and he reached out to me. And now we're collaborating on our own combined family tree. MyHeritage also has incredible features to bring your family history to life. I found this old family photo of my great-great-grandfather, and their tools let me repair,
colorize, enhance, and even animate it. It's like stepping back in time. And here's the exciting part. You can try it all out with a 14-day free trial. Drive into your family's past and uncover stories you never knew existed. Check the link in the description to get started today.
So, now the big question. Can Greenland become independent? First off, the political support is there. In the most recent election in 2021, a whopping 80% of the votes went to pro-independence parties. And if that's not a mandate for sovereignty, then what is? Second, the people seem to agree too. A 2019 poll showed that 67.8% of Greenlanders favored independence. That's more than 2/3 of the total population. Third, it's legally possible. In 2008, a referendum replaced the Home Rule Act with the Act on Greenland Self-Government, granting more autonomy than ever and outlining a clear path to independence. Chapter 8 of the Act spells it out clearly. The decision on independence lies with the people of Greenland. The process is a 3-step journey: a referendum in Greenland, approval by the Greenlandic Parliament, and approval by the Danish Parliament. So, if the support is there, why hasn't it happened yet? The answer lies in money. Greenland is still heavily dependent on Denmark, receiving more than 500 million euros in an annual grant, which makes up about 1/5 of its GDP. Losing that would hurt badly. In fact, a 2017 poll showed that 78% of Greenlanders would oppose independence if it meant a lower standard of living. And let's be real, losing that Danish grant makes a drop in living standards almost inevitable. Still, things might change. The next elections are coming up in April this year, and if pro-independence parties win another landslide, a referendum could be on the horizon. Greenland's current leader has even hinted at holding a referendum as soon as next year. And now, the final question. Would an independent Greenland join the EU? Rejoining the EU could bring trade benefits that might help fill the 500 million euro hole left behind by Denmark's grant. And public opinion has shifted too. Back in 2021, only 40% of Greenlanders supported EU accession, but by 2024, that number jumped to 60%, perhaps nudged along by Trump threatening to buy the land or even use military force. But how would this actually work? Today, Greenland is not an EU member, but maintains ties through its overseas country and territory status, in short, OCT. This arrangement allows Greenland limited access to the EU single market, which mostly focuses on fisheries, trade, and development aid. Oh, and the EU sends Greenland a hefty financial package, 225 million euros, between 2021 and 2027 to promote sustainable development. Not bad for a non-member. But here's the catch. As an OCT member, Greenland is not part of the EU's custom union or the full single market, and its access is pretty limited compared to full membership. Now, if Greenland gained independence, it would lose its OCT status. Instead, it would need to formally apply for EU membership, entering into a long negotiation process to become a full member. But the same problem persists as before: the fish. Greenland's economy is heavily dependent on its fishing industry, which accounts for about 90% of its exports. When Greenland was part of the EEC, the predecessor of the EU, membership required opening its waters to European fishing fleets. That didn't sit well with Greenlanders, who wanted full control over their most vital economic resource. During EU membership negotiations, Greenland would likely push for special exemptions or control over its exclusive economic zone, much like Norway does today. However, balancing this with the EU's fishing policies would be a major sticking point. So, let's look at the possibilities. With so many hypotheticals swirling around, we see 3 possible scenarios for Greenland over the next few years. First, Greenland stays with Denmark, and nothing changes. Well, almost nothing. Denmark might ramp up resources in Greenland to bolster security, given the rising global interest in the Arctic. Second, Greenland becomes independent, full sovereignty, finally breaking away from Denmark. Or third, Greenland becomes independent and joins the EU. A bold move that could provide trade benefits but comes with compromises. But here's the wild card: Donald Trump. He's pushing hard to claim Greenland as part of the US. And while it's unlikely, there's a glimmer of possibility if Greenland pursues option 2 and becomes independent, because this could ultimately also lead to an option 2B, joining the United States. In fact, a recent poll from January 2025, conducted by US survey firm Patriot Polling, found that 57% of Greenlanders supported joining the United States, while 37% disapproved and 5% were undecided. Now, before you jump to conclusions, the poll was severely criticized. Questions were raised about how the respondents were chosen, what questions were asked, and, oh yeah, the CEO of the polling organization was found to have ties to Republican donors and politicians. So, take those numbers with a massive grain of Arctic salt. So why does Trump want Greenland so badly? Watch the video here, where we've identified 3 key reasons behind the US's obsession with Greenland. In this video, we also give you our opinion of how realistic this actually is. And don't miss the chance to explore your family roots. Sign up to a 14-day free trial of MyHeritage today. To support us further, consider joining us on Patreon. Every contribution helps us bring you more in-depth discussions on Europe's future. Thank you to our presidents, Jan, Sjoukje, Christian, Peter, AJVD, and BJ. See you in the next video.